guided meditation? No?
You should squat. There you go. No, you should squat.
Is it guided meditation?
Let's just sit for a few minutes, let ourselves settle. First get comfortable. And then get completely still. Just draw your attention inside your body. And attend only to the tactile sensations. First notice the solidity, feeling of solidity where you contact your seat. And then let your attention scan your body from the top down. Tactile sensations, just moving down. Noticing any points of tension or holding. Maybe slightly around the eyes or the jaw. Here you notice tension. Draw the breath there on the inhale. And with the exhale, relax. Doug's here. He wanted to come tonight, and I said no. Unless you're teaching it, buddy. So, and I know some of you were not here this last weekend, but is there anything that's lingering with anyone from last weekend? Very much. Okay, cool. I'm super excited. It's nice. Helps me feel like I'm doing the right thing. So, tonight's topic is, tonight's topic is meditation. Tonight's topic is meditation. So, I'm a little sort of stumped as to how to present this because I find it really funny. Meditation, it's called Applied Meditation, ACI Course 3, in the Asian Classics Institute, order of courses. So again, this is this review course, so that's why it's packed with all of these different topics within each class. So if you feel like it's like boom, 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 it is, because it's meant to be a review course that you do after having done the other stuff. So tonight is Applied Meditation, and it's just incredibly funny to me.
Can you take a minute to just...
Yeah, I like that idea too. Let's scoot kind of, let's sort of spread out. Maybe Jay, why don't you squeeze over here, and then Heather come forward, John move back, Paul move forward.
Do I need to move?
I think you're okay. You're our baseline. Thank you, Jay. It felt a little odd to me too. So tonight, it's Applied Meditation, and it's like 10,000 lists. So there's just all these lists, and I'm like, it seems kind of funny. So my guess is that for those of you that have done the ACI courses, this stuff is all pretty simple. It's not any like huge brain thing, so it's not necessarily important to go back through all these lists because I feel like I'm sure you have it from having done the course before. So I think what I kind of wanted to ask and find out was, raise your hand if you feel like you have a meditation practice, like a sense of what to do every day. You have an idea what that looks like. Formulating. And it can change, okay, okay. You could, you've been around for a lot of things, but yeah. But sometimes we're hit with so much that we kind of don't know really what a practice would look like. Okay, so, because there's sort of a lot of topics. Are there any, okay, when we say the topic meditation, let's just throw out anything you're curious about, anything you'd like to know, anything that's interesting to you, and maybe that can help me direct what of all this stuff to talk about tonight.
I always like going over the agitation dullness stuff, like over and over and over.
Okay, cool.
That helps me start practicing it again.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah. But to make it fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going next weekend? Because that's Shama's thing with them.
This coming?
Okay. So antidotes, common problems of meditation, mind goes off. How do you work with that? All this kind of stuff.
I was listening to, well, I'm doing course 3 right now, complete it, and thought it was really interesting. I was listening to like class 7 today, and they asked Skeshla a question. You say like we're supposed to do an hour of meditation a day, right? Does that include sadhana, or does that include what? And he was like, it doesn't include sadhana. It's like to get to that platform to be able to see emptiness directly, you have to be doing like fixation meditation for an hour on an object, like outside of, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. We can talk about that. Anything else? Any other things?
I guess things to meditate on. I know there's certain steps to certain meditation where I'm not, I just don't know. I'm like, okay, here I am.
Yeah.
Which one? I've
Yeah.
heard of this one before. Let's go with that one.
Yeah.
And then something like this and another one. So what does that do?
Yeah.
So
nice to have a really clear sense of like boom, boom, boom. Because it's kind of like, I mean, it's like anything. And once you sit down, you want to know intuitively where you're going. I mean, and I think it's important in general to say, and this was one of the topics that Winston just wove through the weekend, is that all of this stuff, it happens in 3 parts, and it's called Tua Samgom in Tibetan. And Tua is like listening, and it's learning authentic traditions that work, and just it's time spent in a class like this, listening to the teachings, hearing it, thinking about it, getting a game plan, getting kind of the concepts to land so that they're inside of our own head, and particularly with meditation. Because when you're meditating, it's not even like you're playing the piano where you can still have your eyes open and be reading the sheet music. When you're meditating, you're not looking at eventually you're not looking at notes and lists and stuff like that. So all that information has to be inside your head. And then just like with playing the piano or anything, there's a fluidity that comes once we're really familiar with all of the steps and we're just rolling through it, not having to pause and go, wait, what comes next? What do I do next? And that's that clunky stage of learning something. So listening and in getting the ideas, getting the information, and sampa is to contemplate it and to think about it and cogitate it and think and in a way to debate with other people about it and kind of discuss things, not just to spit back the list of the 6 things that were said, but to actually kind of go at it using our analytical reasoning. And then the third one is gom, which is to meditate on it really deeply. And that's what Ryan's talking about, to get to a state of stillness and single-pointed concentration so that our attention becomes this finely honed, like laser beam, where we can turn it on to whatever object we choose, and then, because all of our attention is focused in this one place, perceive deep, deep, deep levels of truths that for scattered attention that's kind of here and there and flying all over the place, that we'll never perceive. There's kind of a veil that our kind of ADD level of attention, which is just not even like the modern day ADD level, but just untrained human mind. They say that there's 65 discrete moments of attention per that amount of time, per finger snap. So each one of those is a different thing popping up. And so I can't remember what the number was for like just the ordinary person with the regular level of attention, and that like they talk about some number of those 65 finger snaps, some number, if you're trying to focus on one thing, your breath, there's some number of those things that are on that one, and it's shockingly low. Even when we're on something, like it feels like we're all over. I can't even remember. I want to say someplace in the 30s, but it's like half the time, even when we feel like we're engaged, our mind is actually doing this thing where it's on the object darting, on the object darting. And so shamatha is to get to the point where you say mind go here, and it goes, and it's there. And there's just something about it, so that kind of vision can see deeply into things that it just can't otherwise. And Alan Wallace talks about all geniuses, no matter in what field, whether it's physics or music or whatever, the one thing that they all have in common is incredible absorption into their object. And that's what reveals these high truths, is that they can become absorbed into the object. And that's exactly what we need to do if we want to get absorbed into the object of ultimate reality and understand how the world works. I mean, really, it's kind of like ultimate reality, it's right here, like the emptiness, the availability of things. It's right here, it's in every object we perceive, but I'm sort of locked outside of perceiving that directly because of my scattered attention. Like that's what keeps me, that's what disregards me from ever having any kind of direct interaction with what really is taking place around all the time, because of this frenetic quality of the mind jumping from place to place. So that's really the goal of meditation. It's not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It's the tool. Alan talks about it's the thing that can perceive ultimate reality as a stable, focused, concentrated mind. So when we talk about meditation, this term shamatha, maybe it's in Tibetan, and it's single-pointed meditation, where you can direct the mind onto an object. And they say then, at that point, say you're focusing on, maybe the breath, maybe the contents of the mind, just watching the parade of the parade of appearances to the mind, not getting caught up in them, but sitting back and just witnessing it. If your object, then that would be a mental object, and that you have the ability to completely shut down your attention to sounds or to sights or to smells or to tactile sensations. So you're completely unaware of the feelings in your body when you have directed the mind to pay attention to, the parade of thoughts going by or whatever your object is like that. So, so there's many different methods. I think, Paul, you're talking a lot, and people who you go to stuff at SBMG, and I would say that's probably the common denominator that you meet there, is everyone in the Buddhist tradition is highly concerned with meditation and cultivating this faculty of attention. And then there's just different techniques and different traditions that have evolved, as Buddhism spread out through multiple different countries, evolved through time, just different techniques. Masters have experienced, had gotten results, and then those results were passed on to people. So not that anything's better or worse or whatever, it's just all a little bit different flavor, like that. So, okay, so maybe anything else about meditation? Okay. So I'll just jump in. So maybe we'll do just some lists. Some things we're just definitely going to skip. In our tradition, they do talk a lot about preliminaries so. It's funny. It's not even a question of all the questions that there are. It's not even a question. But there are 3 kinds of meditation in this particular system, which is a Tibetan, like a Lam Rim Tibetan system, and those are discursive meditation. So it's actually to put a problem in front of your mind, or even an idea. They say that everything is impermanent. And so to just put that concept of impermanence in front of your mind and just have a go at it and try to prove it's wrong, prove it's right, to whatever, to just really be analytically thinking about this thing. Or, we talk so much about, oh look, it says Shamajan. We talk so much about the process of perception and how that works. So an analytical meditation would be to think of, well actually you could do all 3 with just, does everyone remember the process of perception? We perceive things. Perception is a process of categorization, putting things into categories. Objects give off cues. They have colors, they have a texture that I can see with my eyes. If you're touching it, you can feel it. Objects give off cues, and then, every object is available. It's ambiguous. It's available to be put in multiple categories. And my mind chooses a particular category for a particular object based on what is a highly activated construct, what I've practiced doing in the past, what's familiar. So that would be a topic. You could do the first kind of meditation, which is a review meditation, to just go through the steps. It's called Shargom in Tibetan, and it's just going through the steps of that. So it's just like kind of what I just said. In my mind I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and because I've done that enough, that those steps are available. You don't have to fish around and go, what was step 2 again? Because it's all available. So it's just reviewing the way you would review if you were studying for a test in your head. So Shargom is getting it kind of there and available. And then analysis. So then because it's in your mind, you can sit and analyze it and say, okay, well wait, is that really true? Is that really true? Let's think of a person. Think of a person that I know. Think of everybody, we always ask the tough questions. Think of 9/11 and these buildings getting bombed. And is that really, that's an evil act? Is that act really ambiguous and available to be put in multiple categories? And then our heart clenches and part of us says, no, that's just simply an evil act. But then we have to analyze it and say, well, wait, were some people dancing in the streets when they got the footage of that happening? And it's not a statement about what the results, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's good, whether it's bad. It's not a statement of that. It's just saying this one event occurred, and it's possible for 2 different sets of people to have wildly different experiences about that one event, right? So that's all it's saying. It's not putting a moral judgment on it. In fact, going along with that is obviously to rejoice and delight in the death of others, is to assure that death and destruction comes to yourself in the future. So it's not, karma and emptiness being tied together. So you'd analyze it and you'd sit with it and you'd try to kind of like get to this point and just think around it. That's the second kind of meditation, analytic meditation. And then Jogom, single-pointed meditation is, or fixation meditation, is where you put the mind simply on one object, simply on one thing. And so there could be a point when say you're struggling with somebody who's difficult, or a difficult person for you, and you're trying to analyze and you're trying to get a taste of their ambiguousness. Because when somebody's pissing you off, doesn't it just so solidly, it's like your whole being is screaming out, this is a bad person, this is an evil person, they're wrong, everybody should see them this way, if they don't, they're crazy. They've got, this person has them fooled, and I don't know how, because it's so obvious that this is such a bad person, right? So the more afflicted we are, is the more we hold on to things having only one quality. The more we're caught, we're bound in the web of ignorance and think that the way that I see it matches the way that it is, right? And then the same thing with like intense grasping and desire under the throngs of an activated addiction, right? Like that thing, I just want it. Like there's something in our bones that wants it. I haven't been eating any sugar, and Doug got home and first he does is get out these like chocolate almonds, that somebody gave him when he was just in LA, and he's like, hey, here's some chocolate almonds. So they've been sitting there on the counter all day. And so funny, and I'm like, but it's like when it's something you're addicted to, someone you want, it just seems like this object is it's imbued with happiness, it's imbued with a thing that's going to make me feel good, and if I can get a hold of those chocolate almonds, I'm going to feel good. Like my happiness, my feeling good, my well-being, it's in those almonds out there right now. So all I got to do is unscrew the lid and take those almonds, right, and eat them, and then it's a insistence inside of us due to the spell of ignorance that we're under, that there's some quality in those things, and if I can get it, I'll be happy, right? So we can analyze that and kind of think about it, and when you really can sit with it and think about it deeply, then there's a moment when you can be putting this issue, this problem in front of your mind and analyzing it, and there's a moment where you might actually arrive at a real sense, say the jerk, say this evil, mean person, and you've kind of been struggling to go around it, and like, no, evil, mean, we think of the pictures, we think of my mind looking out at this person, and I'm not actually seeing the person. I'm seeing we put it in quotations because it's a mental image. It's a story coming out of my seeds. So I'm thinking like, okay, wait, they're not really evil. It's my picture. It's my story. It's my habit forcing me to categorize them as evil, as wrong. And we think about this and we work with this. And then there might be one moment when we're like doing this kind of contemplation meditation, and we just say, just drop the veil, drop the mental affliction, or drop the mental image. When I pull away my story about who this person is, what are they? What's there? And there can be a moment when you're contemplating deeply where you get this instant sense of like, what's there? It's ambiguous. Or in ancient Sanskrit language, it's shunya. It's empty. Right? What's there is shunyata, the emptiness. The fact that this person isn't evil in and of themselves, independent of the way that I'm interacting with it. And so that's the third kind of meditation on emptiness, which is a harder one to do, where you get a sense of emptiness and then you just freeze the mind right there. And just maintain in the space of the emptiness of it. And then the thoughts will creep back in, and it'll happen quickly. But then you can use the analysis to arrive at a point where you can just, the mind can be stunned into just having this little momentary glimpse of like, it looks to me like they're evil from their side. But if I pull that mental image, if I pull my story away from it, what's there? And it's kind of like, it reminds me of pulling like a Halloween ghost, like pulling the sheet off, like what would be underneath, like what's there? And then you fixate it on it and you stay there. So Jogo meditation on breath, a single-pointed kind of meditation. The most common that we see that with is the breath. So breath meditation used in all the traditions is a single pointed meditation. It's one object. So many benefits because it's also slightly moving. It's slightly changing. So it's enough for the mind to get really engaged and really interested in. But it's not changing so much that it's hard to tell if you're still on the object. And that's the thing with sadhana practice. It's changing so much that it's hard to tell if you're still engaged with the object. So it's a little bit of an advanced, it can be a shamatha object, but it's kind of a little bit more advanced. So those three kinds of meditation. So what are the preliminaries. In this system, they would say that the preliminaries are very important. So we've been kind of just sitting down, and actually today, really what I led through quite briefly is a version of preliminaries, because all those are kind of like steps that maybe you would spread out over 10 minutes to just get your mind settled and grounded, and then go into a more subtle meditation on the breath. But in this system, there's a whole bunch of preliminaries that are really encouraged to kind of just get the mind ready. So the first one is to create a clean and a sacred space with an altar. So it's a space that's just dedicated for meditation practice. And then to set forth beautiful offerings. And this is the principle, where does the specialness in something come from? Just like the evilness or the maliciousness in the person that I can't stand and is haunting me at night. Where does that maliciousness, that evil, that problem come from? When we analyze it further, it's actually coming from me because somebody else really loves them. Somebody else really likes them. So where does the specialness in these teachings, or the specialness in any particular teacher, or the specialness in somebody that we're in love with, or the specialness of anything, where does the specialness come from? That also is coming from seeds in my own mind. That I look at this person, or we hear some kinds of teachings and they seem important and it sounds worthwhile. If we hear a presentation on meditation and what pops up is a mental image that says that could be really beneficial and useful. And is meditation beneficial and useful? It depends, doesn't it? It's available. It's available. It's available to be that. And if we cultivate the seeds to see it as special and useful, we will practice it because we spend our time doing what's meaningful, what means something and is important to us. We make time for that. What isn't, we don't. So if we practice respecting the practice of meditation, making a space just dedicated for it, putting offerings out, that imbues it with this kind of specialness. And then we'll engage with it more with this quality of specialness. And then that goes to feed more seeds getting planted in my heart to have this special thing, which is just a time when I get to get still and silent and go inside and have some sense of, of peace, connection, important realigning inside or something like that. So setting forth beautiful offerings. And it's just, that's the traditional Tibetan way of talking about it. And but just to hold it in a respectful way. Please chime in and jump in with questions, thoughts anytime you want. And then, this one's important. Well, they're all important. Go for refuge and think about the wish for enlightenment. And this is just, we've talked about this a lot in our first couple of classes together. Refuge is like saying, it's like, I need some help here, and there's something important that I want to do. And I believe that this practice of meditation can help me do that, can help me break through to a different way of participating with this world, a different way of being. And so we set our intention in the beginning, not wanting something to happen on the cushion, but affirming that one of the goals, so there's this interesting thing, there's like don't be attached to the fruits of your practice. And we've all tried to meditate and sit down and have this whole expectation of what's going to happen. And simply the fact of having any expectation that something's going to happen is going to assure that you don't have any kind of good meditation at all, right? In the time when because the energy of expectation is where? It's someplace else, right? And the practice of meditation is being right here, right now. Like breath by breath, instant by instant, being right here. So if I'm grasping onto the idea of something happening, I'm just by definition not able to be right here, right now. And that magic thing that happens sometimes when I meditate won't happen, right? But there's an interesting thing. So yeah, not to be attached to what's happening during meditation, but we also still need to have life goals, right? We also still need to know this is what I want to do with my life. And we know because everything we've ever accomplished in our life, it started as an idea in our mind, it got more and more important, and then we took steps to make it happen, and it's exactly the same with meditation. So when we sit down in the beginning of our meditation practice and we say a little prayer of refuge, and there's prayers that you can say, or there's the kind of the ultimate refuge, which is what we talked about, remembering karma and emptiness, remembering that things are ambiguous, and if I habituate my mind towards kindness and love and single-pointed concentration versus a scattered attention, I'll have more of those things. I'll have the highly activated constructs to experience love and gratitude around me, and I'll have the highly activated constructs to experience a state of deep stability and peace and insight and the understanding that arises with that. So establishing in the beginning that I'm sitting down right here because I want to plant a very particular kind of karma, particular kinds of seeds that I'd like to see ripen in the future. Taking refuge. And it's also helpful to be thinking like, and if I don't do this, what happens? If I don't do this, what happens? And we all have the things that keep us balanced and grounded, and then we all know the patterns that we get totally unbalanced and ungrounded, so it's a little bit recalling that. Like for me, it's a sense of completely spinning and spiraling out of control. People always say like, oh my God, you've been meditating and doing yoga for 20 years? You must be a really like balanced person. And I'm like, yeah, no, not at all. I just can't even imagine how crazy I would be if I wasn't like having some practice. And some people just seem to maintain in this crazy world fine-ish without it, and I just would be insane. I'm already a little bit insane, but like I don't even know what it would be like without practice. So, okay, taking refuge. Bodhicitta, it's this vision of, and I'm sitting down for myself because I want to understand myself, I want to understand the world, and I want to know if there's a way to stop sickness, old age, and death, and all this suffering that plagues all of us. I desperately want to find, a way through those things. Bodhicitta is saying, I'm in this situation, and so is everybody else around me. So I sit down here, hoping I can learn something, I can uncover, something, some bit of truth inside that can help free others from their pain as well. And that right from the beginning really establishes why we're practicing, and it sort of sets the tone, and it makes it a practice that leads to liberation and to freedom. There's Time magazine articles that you can meditate on broccoli, and it'll calm you down. And it's just simply true. Because, from multitasking, when you're trying to talk on the phone and answer an email and do whatever, the effect that has on your mind. And it's agonizing, right? If you're at all sensitive, we're aware of getting ripped apart into all these different, and there's loud noises going on, and that frenetic, crazy feeling when our attention is just pulled in different directions. So, as Time magazine says, you can meditate on anything. So sit down and focus on broccoli for 5 minutes, and if you have any bit of luck, any bit of skill at doing that, it's such peace to just limit your attention, eliminate focusing on everything but the broccoli, and then experience this state of deep calm. And it's a stress management tool. So that's true. It does that. It'll do that. And it's a little bit like, using a nuclear bomb to open a can of dog food. It's like, it's good. And that is one of the first things, is that we get some stress relief and we get a sense of calm. And that's beautiful, and I think it keeps us practicing because we need to have some experiences. But the real point of meditation is to go deeper and deeper into that so that we can perceive truths. By starting our session with refuge and bodhicitta, it's kind of establishing a life goal of freedom for myself and others. Does that make sense? All right, so in this one here, number 4 of 6, it's says, visualize the collected lamas and the holy refuge, the merit field. So we're very much within the Tibetan system here. And within the Tibetan system, which is a Vajrayana system, teachers and mentors are incredibly important. And maybe within all systems. I have only really studied Buddhism from this angle, so I don't really know. But what we're trying to do is connect with a reality that is something we've never seen before. You know, we're trying to reach out of the scope of the ordinary world that we see around us all the time. And and really the only way we ever do that is if we get a little bit of a smell, a little bit of a taste that someone else has done that. And then that person, if it appears to us that there's somebody, and it can be somebody that we know and we can learn from directly, or it can be somebody that we read Krishnamurti's books and we're like, whoa, what's up with this guy? It can be Jesus, it can be any figure, that something for you connect and you have a sense that they saw a higher level of reality. They saw deeper truths, and in your heart there's some yearning to connect with those truths. And so step one, in order for us to do that, it's kind of like we need to be drawn there because it's hard. It's hard. Has anyone ever tried to change a habit? Anyone ever tried to like cut off an addiction? It's freaking ridiculously hard, right? You're strong and you're motivated, and then you're like, okay, I can do it. And then what happens the next day when you got 4 hours of sleep and like, you know, they're hollering at you at work and the family's hollering at you, and it's just like, no. You know, like it's hard. And what we're trying to do is break the biggest addiction that we have, which is believing that things are the way that they appear to me right now. It's the addiction that holds every living being caught in a cycle of death. And that's the habit that we're trying to break. So we need a massive sponsor to be able to make that happen. Right? I mean, that's why the 12-step program is so effective, because you come in as a brand new person who's just desperate, knowing that your life is spiraled down the toilet. You come in desperate, and there's a room full of people that you can connect with, and you get to pick the one that works for you. The one that's the gender and the age, and just you have the good juju. Like it just clicks as a person, and they're sitting in the seat of having walked down the road that you are ready to embark on. They've done the work, they've gone there, and they have advice and experience with that. And they become your sponsor. And really that's it. So like we say refuge and bodhicitta, we commit. I'm on a path. I don't really know what's out there, but my heart tells me there's some kind of freedom that's available. My heart just tells me that, and I yearn for it. I don't really know. You know, so I'm just hoping. And then we say help, and then our sponsor comes. Right? And that's our guru or our teacher or an image of Mahatma Gandhi or somebody who is important to you, like that. We will give up if we feel like, we'll give up if we don't have any kind of that sense of a community, any sense of kind of guidance, any sense that somebody else has done this and they've laid the path. Have you ever been like out thinking you're following directions to get someplace way out in the boonies, and you're just going and going and going, and like you start to lose all hope, and you're like, how long have we been driving? And then it's dark, and you just like, you know, and you just start to like, but when if now with GPS and there's like a pin, and you're like, oh no, it's still up there, and you just know that it's up there, and you don't have the same kinds of doubts. That the doubts that would cause us to actually give up if we don't have somebody continuously putting that pin on the map for us and saying, no, the destination, it is ahead. It's 4 miles. It's 3.99 miles because you're driving 3 miles an hour, you know, like it's like we need to have that out there. And that's really what a mentor is, what a teacher is, you know. Okay, so and we visualize the collection, the merit field. There's traditional ways to do this. You can see the Buddha, you can see the sky full of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, there's all that. Endless amounts of elaboration. Simple, I think, is best for us because our lives are incredibly elaborate. We need simplicity in our practice. And then, so we've created a nice space, we've set out the altar, we've made some offerings. We can prostrate if we want to. That's a very beautiful practice. It's very humbling and sweet. then we finally take our seat on our cushion, and then we establish our motivation. We say refuge and bodhicitta. And then we visualize in front of us our mentor, our sponsor. Does that work, the sponsor thing? I like it. It just came out right now. I really like that. We establish our sponsor. And we feel them in front of us. And then from this point on, everything we do in our practice takes place in their presence. In their presence. Like, it's, I think it's very much probably like deep Christian practitioners who have such this sweet relationship, and I'm sure Hindu, like all the various worshipers, like anybody, and I think most of us don't identify so strong with this kind of just full bhakti, full devotion. But if you meet a devotee of a guru, of Vishnu, of Krishna, of Jesus, of whatever, like when they sit and contemplate and meditate, they're in the presence of the divine. Like they're just there in the presence of the divine. And that's what we want to cultivate.
Mother Teresa talks about that all the time.
Oh, cool.
Having the Jesus with you all the time.
Cool. Yeah.
And Brother James have a practicing the presence of God. That's his meditation. That's only practice he does.
That's it. Yeah. And our teacher would say you need nothing else, really. Because that is it. In a way, we're doing all of this to arrive at that goal, which is to really have the sense that we're in the presence of God all the time.
You're sitting in the lap of God.
Yeah, all the time. And then whatever comes, whether it's extreme adversity or it's extreme felicity, it's all fine. It's all released. And it's not about me, it's not about ego. It's this beautiful kind of offering. I think all of this is aimed to getting at that goal. And that's Tantra. That's actually Tantra right there. So
Yeah, and
this whole
Teresa
practice is
of
that.
I was reading the book, and she talks about the same thing, about having the presence in your heart.
Cool.
Yeah, I never thought that there was so much this tradition in Christianity.
Yeah. I think all traditions, really. It's like, I love, the story of the Dalai Lama, and somebody kind of attacking him and saying, why are you coming out and giving another religion to the world? We don't need any more religions. Religions are just people's excuses for fighting and killing each other. And he said, no, it's like this. Like, there's a line. And below the line is all the people who are say that they're practicing their religion, but they're fighting with each other and they're criticizing others and they're insisting that they're correct and that other people are wrong and they're in the battle. And then there's above the line, it's the people who are really practicing their traditions, and those ones are all the same. Like those ones are all the same. So really all the ones that are really practicing deeply are all the same, and all the ones that are really not practicing deeply are all the same. Right? Just arguing different doctrine like that. So yeah. So that's, cute. All right. So in the presence of this holy being, and for a lot of us this will feel quite conjured up at first, and that's okay. It's okay that it feels, like taking your first steps and awkward, or writing your first cursive letter. It's all, it'll feel like that. And then the fifth one is gathering goodness and purifying obstacles. And these preliminaries, these are actually really my favorite. And if these preliminaries, you can relate to them at all. Oh, that's so cool. This must have been from the meditation class that you guys did. Yeah, because this is one of our sources for tonight, Master Kamal Shila's Gomrim Chandra. So the preliminary practices are like, so you sit down, you're in the presence of the sacred, and it doesn't, here's the thing, it's like, so a lot of us struggle to like, who are we going to see, what face, and this week I read a quote on Facebook from, Teresa of Avila, so she's really inspiring me, but like next week, I don't really have a connection with her, and so next week I'll be reading somebody else, and that it's not even so much about a face, like, if it's some sense of just divinity in the universe, and this like perfect wholeness, like this perfect system that all this elaborate stuff arises out of, like whatever it is, if putting a face on it feels wildly uncomfortable, then I think it's probably not necessary. Mostly it's practicing, engaging with the construct divine, sacred, important, holy. Because we don't engage with that construct nearly enough, right? Like I don't. I grew up in a very secular family. I'm pro, science. Like I don't engage with that which is unknown, the holy mystery, that bigger thing that's somehow holding all of this. One half of reality is the fact that things are screwed up and broken, and I'm full of mental afflictions, and there's old age, and there's sickness, and there's death, and there's famine, and there's war, and there's things to fix, and there's problems to solve. And then there's love, and there's families, and there's closeness, and there's connections. That's one part of reality, and that's a valid, important part of reality. The other half of reality is the fact that there's a wholeness. There's a fluidity. From death comes birth, and just this cycle of things. It's more like the space, the ground from which all of this emerges, and that I think we could call the sacred, and we need to connect with that. Okay, so in the presence of this holy being, we gather goodness, plant good seeds, and we clear away obstacles. And so these are called the 7 ingredients. We usually call them the preliminaries, but the 7 ingredients. And maybe for short, I would just say step 1 is refuge and bodhicitta, setting intention. Okay, and then I don't know, what do you want to say? See your guru? Yeah.
Invocation.
Invocation, call God. I like it. Call God before you, call the divine, whatever. It's all your language, it's all your picture, it's all your everything. And then in the presence of the divine, we do these 7 things. And so 1 is prostration. And prostration is many ways to do it. One way our teacher talks about is think about, so in the example of an actual teacher, I think about my teacher, and I think about the fact that I wouldn't understand anything without my teacher. I wouldn't understand any of this. And I know the difference between how my life is going when I'm really fully, solidly clinging to things being the way that I'm seeing. And I'm fighting with people, and I'm insisting that I'm right, and I'm insisting that they're wrong. And it's a whole bunch of me trying to manipulate, micromanage, and manhandle everyone around me, my world, and myself. And it's clunky, and it's awkward, and it's no fun. And I know that. And then I also know how things are when I've had some kind of a really teachings that give me some spaciousness into seeing, like, okay, this is the way that I'm seeing it right now. This is just the way that I'm seeing it. But if I actually check in with Michael, he's going to have a different way that he's seeing it. And both of those ways are just as valid. Even though they might not agree with each other, they're just as valid. Because through his whole background and storyline, that's his experience right now. And through my whole background and storyline, this is my experience right now. And there's something that softens around that. And it's a bigger view that allows us to get along and accept each other, and it expands my scope of awareness. Out of me, what I know, my blinders, and my set of assumptions, and insisting that those assumptions are right. I keep saying the same thing over and over again. So I would prostrate to my teacher because my teacher comes repeatedly and teaches me about emptiness, karma and emptiness, that I have any sense of space in the world at all. Any sense of ability to kind of, direct it intentionally in the way that I want it to go. So I would just bow, in my mind, mentally, just bow to my teacher and say, thank you for teaching me that. The second one, and again, interrupt any time. It's not interrupting. Ask anything. Interject anytime. The second one is offering. When someone has given us something for which we are incredibly grateful, what's the natural response that you want to have? Your heart opens and you just want to pour back something. And that's offering. I mean, all this follows a very logical or a natural progression. So it's just offering. So here it can be, you just saw something really beautiful, a beautiful tree like up in flame, like, or all the ginkgos along McKinley Park and all their like beautiful shapes and colors. And so you just, in your heart, you imagine just presenting all these beautiful trees and colors and all this, and a sky full of all of this beauty, catching the light just right. You imagine presenting this to your teacher, and you imagine them receiving it and just feeling so blissed out and happy. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing the offering is, or delicious things, whatever, anything. Just it's all have fun and be creative and make it very visceral. Beauty, I don't know, yumminess. And the other one is your practice. Really what they want, what makes them the happiest, is when you spend a minute and a half struggling with the fact that this person totally pisses you off. And I want to yell at them, but I'm remembering what I was told last weekend. And I know that if I yell at them, I'm just planting more seeds to have more irritating people in my life. And so for that minute and a half when I hold myself back and I try not to engage with my instinctive response to fight back, that practice, and then maybe it's the horse breaks through, breaks out of the ropes, and I'm like, maybe that, but that minute and a half of intelligent, understanding emptiness, wisdom, restraint, that's the deepest practice there is. And that's the highest offering to make. So just think of that event, that moment, or when you shared something with somebody, you gave something to somebody else that you were feeling a natural tendency to cling on to and not share. Some things we share easily, some things when somebody wants them, no. Like that. So just go back into that moment where you expand it a little bit. Because of understanding, expand it and offer that practice to your teacher. Just all in your mind, mentally. Is this making sense? And the third one, confession. Shakpa in Tibetan. Purifying obstacles. So purifying obstacles, confession. So this one, this is cleaning away the obstacles that build up. And the thing is, it's like every time I hurt somebody, every time I disregard somebody's feelings, every time inside I say me first, and I push myself in front of somebody else, what that's doing is it's just solidifying my place in an existence of suffering. Like what we're trying to do with our refuge and our bodhicitta practice is get to a place of freedom, of connection, of where I recognize the interconnectedness, I recognize the availability and the possibility, rather than being locked in, having a sense of possibility and freedom. And every time I dart in front of somebody in traffic, that goes in my mind. I see it. That's recorded as another time of saying, you're more important. Get in front of them. You need to go first. You're more important than them. And that solidifies me inside of a world where we're fighting with each other, where there's limited resources, where there's wars, where there's disagreement, where there's people hurting each other all over the place. That just ensures my future existence in this kind of a place. That ensures me continuing to create this kind of a place. There's no that place out there. That ensures that I will continue to create this kind of a planet, where the children are now afraid that the polar ice caps will melt and our state will be underwater. So we had a different set of regular teenagers. Like my daughter, this is an anxiety producing thing for her. She's 15 because they talk about global warming at their school. This is producing anxiety, and they're kind of like, well, should I go to college? I don't even know if there's going to be a place to have a job when I get home, much less that there are no jobs available, which kind of isn't really true, but for some, that's a real thing, and that's produced by me having this very solid, strong idea that resources are limited, and because resources are limited, I need to elbow my way in front of other people to get enough for me. And if that worldview is ruling, I will live in a world where resources are limited, and where the population is going up and the amount of oxygen is going down. And there will come a time when there's not enough air, and there's not enough water, and there's not enough food for all the human beings on the planet. And that's not because we're running out of anything out there. It's because I have practiced darting in front of people in traffic so many times thinking I'm more important than you. where I have to go is more important and I have to get there first, so get out of my way. And that puts that seed in my mind. So I want to clean that up. So I want to clean that up. So I think back on today, one time, just any one time where I did that. I was feeling late. I saw somebody. I saw that they wanted to turn right. I was annoyed that they were moving a little slower than I wanted them to move. And I jutted around and in front of them really quickly. And I just replay that in my mind, replaying it underneath the lens. At the time, I was not thinking about karma and emptiness. I was not thinking about any of this, right? I was simply thinking, I need to be someplace, you are in my way, you are the enemy, and I'm going to do what I can to get around you as fast as I can. Furthermore, you're irritating because you're moving way too slow. You're just a bad person because you're going too slow, right? So I go back, I think of this whole little 10-second scenario, and then I think about the kind of seeds that that's producing in my mind, to live in this kind of dog-eat-dog world, right, where we tear each other down. And I think about that, and genuine regret comes. Not a feeling of guilt, but an actual feeling of I just drank poison. I poisoned myself today. And I'm not experiencing the results of that poison yet, but it will come. And it's just regret. I mean, just genuine regret. So this is like the 4 powers, right? Really quickly. And then we make the promise to not do it again. Okay, tomorrow, restraint. The essence of cleaning things up. So John, you'd asked about this. This is the brief of the 4 powers of purification. 1 is refuge, which is basically what? Anybody?
Asking for help.
Asking for help.
Karma and emptiness.
Help, fear of what's going to come, and remembering karma and emptiness. Right? The second one is because if we remember karma and emptiness, I remember the act I did, the motivation behind it, genuine regret. And that equals I took poison, like that kind of quality. I knocked all my teeth out in a bike accident my first year of college, and I remember laying on the pavement, spitting out what I could tell were all my front teeth, and there was just this feeling of oh, duh! It was just because everything slows down, and I took that corner a little too fast, and it was raining a little too much that day, and it was it's like that, and it wasn't guilt, it was just if I could have rewound and just done it slightly differently, a whole set of situations wouldn't have unfurled, So it's just that kind of regret. And then the essence of purification is restraint. Committing not to do it again. Well, I have to be quite honest with myself. And I drive, it's time for a break. Let's finish the 4 hours. I drive a lot in traffic. I unfortunately leave really late a lot of the time, so I'm often really rushed. So for me to say I'm never ever going to be an aggressive, mean driver again is kind of pretty unrealistic. I would like to be able to say that, but I also don't want to rack up the karma of lying. So restraint. So I have strong regret for something that I did driving today. So then I say, okay, I wanted to say all day tomorrow, but I don't know if I could pull it off. So I say, tomorrow while I'm driving my daughter to school, for that hour, there and back, I am not going to drive aggressively. I'm going to leave 10 minutes early so I have plenty of time for all the train crossings and all the everything to come up, and just to be calm, be present, and I'm not going to drive aggressively. I'm going to let people go first. I'm going to restrain from them. And then the fourth one here, we replay it a different way. We replay it the way it could have been. I could have come up behind this car doing something funny, backed off, taken a deep breath, settled down, and thought, may you get where you're going. And it probably would have taken less time. Right? And then we replay it in the positive way that it goes. And that's confession. And that is cleaning up obstacles. Clearing our